There are definitely more, but I have chosen just 5. And now there's another one. It just came to my mind, and it is negativism. You understand what is negativism? And first part of my speech will be a little negative, which doesn't mean that that you don't need encouragement. So in the second half, I will try to find some solution. So the first, there will be certain dangers or pitfalls, but then I will try to make some ideas what to change and what to do differently. And I also guess, or I think that you are in leadership position. So basically, I will talk to either pastors or, I don't know, deacons or elders or organization leaders. So I will guess that you are in some leadership position, that you know what I'm talking about. And sometimes I will give you some examples from my experience. I'm in charge of one Czech Evangelical denomination. It's Evangelical Church of Brethren. So I am president of the denomination, and also I lead one church in Prague. So I have some experiences with leadership. So I will start with the pitfall number 1, and this is power. So, sometimes as a pastor, I think that I have no power. I can say whatever I want to say, and people do whatever they want to do. So I try to persuade them, I try to teach, I try to preach, I talk with people, but they are just volunteers. But I have power. And we all know that for functioning of any human community, including the church, we need someone with power and authority. It is just reality. And we are also probably aware how easily power and authority can be abused. And how power can be abused in some churches or Christian organizations. So the first area of abusing power is the wrong sense that because someone in the church or Christian organization is in leadership position, he or she is representative of God. That is, God speaks through them. And this gives the person great authority, and from which it is only close to feeling that disobeying this representative of God means to disobey the authority of God. Do you understand? So the danger comes when following ideas arises. My pastor, my leader, my priest, my elder, deacon is God-ordained authority, and therefore I must obey him. And no question are possible. So, and when a formula and I really heard this formula, not from myself, but from other people, God told me about you, that you should. We are close to some real problems. And, I am not disputing the pastor is called, or not only pastor, but leader is called to lead his or her ministry. But it doesn't mean that people should obey him uncritically. So every good leader is open to criticism, even though it hurts. The second area of possible abuse of power is the pulpit. You hear pulpit. You understand what it is. So, I am not, of course, saying that preaching word is wrong, but it must be handled wisely. On one hand, we are confronted with a lot of informations, but at the same time, it is still true that preaching word has tremendous power. And when minister, and I'm not talking just about pastor, anybody who preaches, is seen in the pulpit, he simply has power. It's just reality. So people listen to him, usually every Sunday or every other Sunday. They look for him for inspiration. They act sometimes according to his words, and his word becomes direction for them. And it gives you authority. Just it is. And even, think about it, that even the fact that the pulpit stands higher than the audience, or that the preacher stands while the audience sits, or he speaks while the audience is silent, it gives a certain sense of power and authority. And it can be used to great effects to glorify the Lord if we hold to the words of John the Baptist, I must decrease, and what is the second part? Yes, and sometimes some ministers say, yes, he must decrease, and I must also decrease. That's danger. Of course, we would not say that loudly, but. And the third danger is sin confession. Even though we are not in Catholic Church, we still, as a pastors, we are not just in pastors or ministers. Sometimes people confess their failures or their sins. And once you know certain informations about other person, you gain power over them. And it doesn't necessarily mean that I will say him, I know something about you, and next Sunday I will preach about it. And I will say that you are the one who is in big trouble. I don't think that he would do that this way. But sometimes in personal conversation, I can use it. I know something about you. Or I can even remind it. And it makes other person very uncomfortable. And again, if we know something about other people, we have certain amount of power. And we have to be just aware of that, nothing more. Loneliness. I will give you an example. As a leader of denomination, one of my largest part of my ministry is to travel around country, and I meet with pastors. So I call him and I would like to meet you. And so I come. We have 3 hours, let's say 3 hours. And how do you think that our conversation looks like? It's no dialogue very often. I come and they talk and talk and talk and talk. They are lonely. And then after 3 hours, they say it was great conversation. But I have feeling we did not talk. It was just one-way conversation. They feel lonely. Paul Tournier, maybe you know this guy. I think that he already died, but he was a Swiss theologian and a psychologist. And he wrote this. Rarely have I felt the isolation of modern man more than with some preachers and ministers. Again, rarely have I felt the isolation of modern man more than with some preachers and ministers. Many ministers feel isolated because they carry the burdens of their congregation and they don't have strong personal support system. And sometimes it is their failure, their mistake. Sometimes there is just no system how to help their loneliness. They are just lonely. And and I am not pastor, so I have also experiences with civil profession. So I was electrician, then I was teacher, and so I can compare a little bit. And most people in their job, they work in a team. They are at least in office or some other or open office. At least it's more like rabbit boxes, but let's say that they pretend that they are together. But when you think about ministers, a lot of time they spend alone. So all morning I prepare some lectures or preaching. I travel just by myself. Afternoon I'm with people, but maybe it's the same or similar with you. A lot of time we spend alone. And also another dimension of loneliness. And I'm talking about not just about pastors. And because also I spoke with missionaries, people working in church, is specificity of their profession. Because sometimes it's difficult to explain what I'm doing. I will give you an example. As a pastor, when I was in local church, I asked my elders for some kind of feedback. So they say, okay, if you want. So I started to write. I don't know if every month or every 2 months, something like timesheet or no timesheet. It was not like timesheet what I did every hour, but basically some overview what I'm doing. Do you understand what I mean? I did not write, that I prepare preaching 10 hours or 10 minutes or some basic overview. So I started first month, second month, third month, and no response. So after 6 months, I was a little nervous. So finally I asked them, do you have some feedback? Do you read it? Do you even read it? And they said, yes, we read it. It's interesting. So, and I asked them, and do you have some feedback for me? And they said, we don't know what you should do. So you preach, you meet with people, and your job is so different from our jobs that if there is not some fight in the church, it's okay. Do you understand? They were very nice. They cared, but just their lives and not their works, it was just so different from my work that they have nothing to say. So I'm not saying that it's everywhere, it's always this way, but it was my experience. The other thing is that loneliness of the minister sometimes stems from the fact that what they deal with is sometimes not very important matter for his co-workers. Why? Because, they have other things to worry about than the church. They have their civilian work, their civil work. So I also see, and I have great elder board. They are very, very, very honest men and women, and they are very supporting. But I know that they just don't have time. For example, and again, they are great, but I can't call them from 8 in the morning till 6 afternoon because they are so busy that many of them just don't have time even to pick up the phone. Or if they pick up the phone, they say, David, I have 1 minute. What do you need? But do you understand? So I feel, sometimes that there is nobody to talk with or to I need some advice. And David, quickly, I have to do something. So sometimes what captures our attention is not so important for them. It doesn't mean that they are failures, that they are wrong, that they are bad, but it's just reality. It sometimes gives us feeling of loneliness. Even, we are here and we are dreaming about starting new church, about starting new ministry. Yes, here. Do you have the same feeling? You are dreaming. We will change the world, and we will change our churches, we will change our society. That's great. But my experience sometimes is that I come home, I share it with people in my church, and what do you think that they answer? David, is a great idea, but we need to survive to next Sunday. Sometimes, And I'm in good church, my church is growing. And I never experienced the year when we would not baptize people, but still sometimes they are living in sometimes different world. And I feel lonely sometimes, not just me. Perfectionism, next pitfall. When I worked in the civilian profession, often it was given tasks that were more or less measurable. And I had some deadlines. For example, to plug in the light bulb, and to make it shine. I was electrician. I feel like, let be a light. So I felt like God, in my first profession. Or when I studied, or when I taught my students, so my exam was to prepare my students for final exams. If they passed, I was a great teacher. If they did not, they were dumb students. Very easy. But my work was always finished. They either passed or they did not pass, but it was clear that my work is over. And if they did not pass, they had all holidays to prepare for repetition. When I prepare sermon, now I'm talking about from pastoral experiences, but also you prepare some speech or some lesson. You can always prepare it longer. And I have some pastors' friends, and they prepare their preachings 15 hours. But if they have 2 preachings a week, it's more than 50% of the working hours. Or it's terrible. 30 hours to preaching. Then you preach, and in 30 minutes, it's gone. Or when you speak with, when you have pastoral or conversation, and when you speak with other people, you can always meet them again. You will never, ever probably solve their problems completely. You can always add some other advice. You can prepare better an agenda for Sunday, or you can be more involved in ecumenical activities. You can visit more people. You can read more books. You can study more. You can. Do you understand? So you should go to youth camp. You can go to church retreat. Whatever you do, you can do in church or in spiritual or some Christian organization. It can be always more, better, perfect, more perfect, and etc. And if you are perfectionist, it can kill you, because you always feel you are not good enough. And nobody knows exactly where is some line or some deadline or some limits. The other thing is about perfectionism. If I preached only what I'm doing, I would reduce my preaching. Maybe I would not preach about many things. I will be very open. I pray, but I am not great in prayers. Sometimes I pray only short time. So my question: can I pray? Can I preach about prayers? I will be also very honest. Sometimes I doubt that God is really good if something really bad happens. And I don't understand how he can be good. And sometimes when I see what is going on. So what does it mean that God is good? You know. Sometimes I doubt about many things, basically. You know. And or imagine, we have Lord's Supper in our church, and when we sometimes confess before Lord's Supper, or sometimes one Sunday before we have Lord's Supper, we say in our congregation, prepare for next Sunday, it's going to be Lord's Supper. Do you understand? Okay, so we should prepare. And now imagine, it's Sunday is coming, and you have 2 teenage boys. It's sometimes like to live on a volcano. It's morning, and you are about to leaving the house, and your son is still in bed, and so you wake up, go. It's Sunday coming. I don't like that. I will stay. Go. It's Sunday. No, I will not go. Go on Sunday. Then your wife comes and starts to be like referee. David, you are too tough, and no, you are not tough, and he's lazy, and then he's spoiled, and brrr. And the problem is that this is like volcano. You come finally to the church, and some old lady has some bad mood, and she touch you, and she has big fight with you. So you are even more angry with your wife, with your adult, with your son, with this. Doesn't matter if the lady is old or young, the old one. And then the last point is that there is a cold. It's December, and it's like only 15 degrees. And some man comes and he starts to scream on you. How is it possible that there is a so bad temperature? I'm preacher. I'm not maintainer. And finally realize in 15 minutes the Lord's Supper is coming. I'm not ready. So what I shall do? What I should do? Okay, I know that you know what I should do. To say no Lord's Supper today. So I pray very quickly. God, please, forgive me. But do you understand? So sometimes we preach something, we say something, but the life is sometimes. It doesn't mean that we are hypocrites. But when I was a teacher, when I was electrician, I never felt that I should not go to my work because I'm sinner. Because but as a pastor, as a minister, sometimes I feel I should not do what I'm doing. Not because I'm a hypocrite, but I'm just struggling still, even though I am a president of the denomination. I expected when I become president of the denomination that no more sin, no more temptation, but probably I have to be pope. Maybe then it will change. Now, visible results. That's another pitfall. I know very well that we should not crave worldly fame and recognition, but at least sometimes we as a human, we need to see some visible results. And if we don't see visible results, sometimes we doubt if our work is meaningful. Even here, if you will write some feedback, and then I will read, we have been here, on this seminar, and it was terrible, he had no idea what he's talking about, and his English is terrible, and it was very simple, and it was the worst time ever in European Leadership Conference. I know that I'm God's loved children, but in the same time, it won't be good feeling. So, and my question is, by what to measure the results in the work of, I will call it cleric man, the elder, any leader in the church or a Christian organization, by what, how to measure that he is successful? By the number of converts? But God is sovereign. And I know some of my colleagues who are doing great job, much better job than me, and no converts. So am I better? So, for example, you are the teacher, no, you are preacher, or who is the preacher or pastor? Okay, so you, for example. So I will ask you. So how many members do you have?
1,736.
That's good. And where do you come from?
From
Transylvania.
Just on the paper. That's a state religion.
Your state religion. Oh, and how many people is coming to your church?
20%.
What?
20%.
20%. So I don't know math. So how is it 20%? How many people it is in there? 300. And how many pastors? 2 pastors. Oh, 2 pastors for 300 people. Oh, and I'm kidding. It's pretending. Do you understand? It's just fun. And you know what? I know pastor, and he has 500 people, and he's only one pastor. So what are you doing? Yeah, I'm kidding.
I'm just adding something. I'm quite new in this congregation.
Oh, yeah.
Before that, I was in a congregation where there was 10 people in the church, and since this 10 years, wherever I've been there, I felt myself, I'm doing a job like without any impression.
That's just reality, and So how we should measure it? By new converts or by new members? It's really hard to say. And I know that So sometimes it's difficult that it's okay to that we want to see visible results. At the same time, sometimes we don't see visible results. And I spend sometimes hours with some people. For example, some premarital counseling or marital counseling, and finally they divorced. And I really, really, really spent hours. And sometimes I met them just once, and everything was not like great, but much better. And they said, David, it was so good. Thank you for your advices. Now we know what to do, and their marriage improved. I don't know how is it possible. It just happened, not because of my great advices, but just it happened. Or sometimes, I preached a series of sermons on finances. And finally, several members came to me and they said, David, we can't really contribute nothing to the church. The only problem was that when I saw the car they had and the flat they lived, I knew that they are able to contribute to the church. So, or you preach about 24/7 do you know the prayers? Do you know that about prayers chain? And finally, none of key workers comes and add it. So then you think, what is the problem? So, so the temptation is then to invest our time and energy in things that are visible, in things people will appreciate. And it's not prayer. It is not care for helpless people, for old people, etc. But the preacher who invests only in the visible things is missing his call. And friends, soon will come something positive. Please don't leave the floor, so the room. So this is the last one, the worst one. And if you see my gray hairs, This is the reason, and this is conflict. Conflict. Do you know the word psychopaths? Psychopaths? Psychopaths. So I read that there are only people who like conflicts, and these people are psychopaths. They are, and that's maybe one of the reasons why many politicians belongs to that category. And I don't like conflict. I'm afraid of conflicts. And sometimes, it's very difficult to go through conflicts. John White, another preacher and author of many good books, he wrote, "No test of leadership is so hard as conflict with the opposition." A Christian leader can fall to pieces under the stress of conflict. Some will quit because of it. Others will build a wall around themselves and start firing deadly bullets from behind it. It's very, very true. I had an opportunity last year. I had privilege, God's grace, to write some book about leadership, and I could go to Wheaton College for summer tutorial, and I could finish this book. So I had somebody who led me, who helped me, and he was some very successful businessman. And so he met me and he asked me, "David, what is the most difficult issue in your leadership?" And I told him, conflict. It was very interesting for me that this strong, successful, powerful man said I have the same experience. The conflict is really, really very, very, can be big pitfalls. And, sometimes I feel that I should not avoid to some conflicts. I should go into some conflicts. And sometimes I should stay silent. I should not go into that. Sometimes I should, sometimes I should not. It needs big wisdom, not to be afraid, to go into conflict with some people, to protect the flock sometimes. And sometimes to avoid, not to go, sometimes to go. And sometimes, because I really hate conflicts, but I really pray, God, give me strength to go into conflict. I'm afraid. I'm really afraid. But if I will not go, I failed. But sometimes I was really afraid. And sometimes also I knew that the guy or the man who was struggling with me was very smart and powerful. So I asked my elders for help. And they said, "Yeah, no problem. We know it from business and we will do it." So I think that there were many books written about how to deal with conflict, so I will not talk about it, but I do know that this is one of the most difficult part of leadership. And good leader, as soon as we are in leadership position, there's no way not to have conflicts. If we don't have conflicts, we are like snakes, fishes, or like a fish. No, we have to sometimes. But now the question is what to do, and it will be positive. So now I will give you some advices or ideas, that's a better word. First idea, look to someone with whom you can carry your burdens. Look for someone with whom you can carry your burdens. But it should not be just your spouse. I wanted to say wife, but because there is sister, so spouse. It can be also, but be careful what to say your spouse or what not to say. Don't overwhelm your spouse with your problems. I have tendency sometimes, to share it with my wife, and she's great, but I must be careful not to overwhelm her with my burdens. The other very, very, very important idea. In your calendar, you must have time to rest and regenerate. In your calendar, you must have time to rest and to regenerate your strength. You know, there is a saying, good pastor is busy pastor. Good minister is busy minister. It's not true. You know, because I think that a tired servant can endure nothing, and every conflict, crisis is much harder for him. If we are tired, emotionally down, it's very difficult to deal with conflicts or with problems. We don't have inner power. And so sometimes we must be wise how to deal with our calendar. And really we need to be also, so to rest is not sin. That's what I want to say. That's what I want to say. And you know, I grew up in, I remember when I was young, it's my father, you know, his generation was very different, you know, from my generation, of course, and this young generation is very different from my generation. But I remember being home, when I just sit, or I would never ever would lie in the bed during the day, and if my father saw it, immediately, you have nothing to do something, you know, are you lazy, you know, or you have to do something. So my mindset was I always need to do something. You know. I must be very, 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 very active. This generation has maybe a little bit different problem, but I don't want to talk about Z's generation. The other very key advice is don't let your time with God be taken away. You know, sometimes it happens that we serve God without God. And it's very easy to serve God without God. You know, I remember once there was a pastor and he had a congregation of, and by Czech standards it's quite big, it was about 600 people. And then they found that he had affair with some woman. And there were 2 women, so it was even worse. And it took 3 years. And nobody knew, but what is interesting, the congregation grew up. It did not influence the growth of his congregation. So it doesn't mean that if somebody lives in sin, that it automatically will have influence on his ministry. You know, I teach at seminary. I teach homiletic, or how to preach. I am not saying that I know how to preach, but I teach how to preach. So my first class is that I close my eyes and I say to my students, you know, show me any verse in the Bible, give me 3 minutes, and I will prepare preaching. I don't want to pretend that I'm artificial intelligence. So I close the door, I put the finger into the Bible, and then I open the Bible. In 3 minutes, they have preaching. And I say, this is that we can able to learn how to speak, how to take how to give some example, you know, how to start with some story, you know. Of course, they are young students, so if you would hear it, you would realize that it's not good. But you understand? You can work. You can minister without Holy Spirit. But it's terrible. But people will not recognize it. I'm not saying don't do it. But we are able to pretend that everything can work. We can serve God without God. This is danger. And you know, our Protestant or our evangelical spirituality is very activistic. You know, which is good. You know, faith without deeds is dead. Without work or without deeds, it is good. In the same time, there is a danger that it's only about doing something. You know, so be careful about that. Find someone who is able to give you feedback. Very important. Find someone who is able to give you feedback. Feedback does not mean find someone who always agree with you. I remember some people asked me for feedback, so I gave them feedback, but as soon as they heard something they did not like, they said, I don't want any more feedback from you. You are criticizing me. So why is feedback but feedback? Feedback is not agreement. Feedback does not mean only yes, you are great. You are the best. Další. Many pastors, many ministers are prone to self-pity. Don't give in to self-pity. Don't feel sorry for yourself, I would say reject, I call it, not me, but the victim mentality. I'm victim of bad circumstances, I'm victim of bad father, I'm victim of bad everything, and bad society, blah, blah, blah. The victim mentality, it could be for another lesson. So, we should not do that, basically. We are not victims. Sometimes yes, but sometimes we can influence at least something. And we have to be able also to accept our responsibility. Next, be very careful who you bring on your team. Sometimes, if you can influence who will be in your team, I will give you advice from Rick Warren. And Rick Warren, he speaks about 3 C, and it is character, chemistry, and competence. It's very wise advice. Character, who you are. Chemistry, which means relationships. It is also important. Chemistry, sometimes I have experienced that I had some people in team and the chemistry was wrong. But it does not mean that they were wrong. It just did not, we could not, what? Match or walk. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe he was, I don't know. He was not living in sin. I did not live in sin, but chemistry did not work. So finally, we agreed that we will split because of chemistry. So if it is possible to influence it, chemistry is really important. And of course, competence. Sometimes in the church, we underestimate competence because only competence is that you are a good guy. You are godly and good guy. But if you are not competent to play guitar, it's not good to be worship leader, for example. At least you should know at least 2 accords, G and C at least. In some worship it would be enough, but so, and that's next. Don't underestimate, and now important work, regular communication with people you work with. Don't underestimate regular communication with people you work with. Because if we don't communicate regularly, tension starts to build up. I remember reading people that sometimes I underestimated that principle. And first time when I communicated with people was, what do you think? When they did something wrong. And they came and they were right. They said, David, 2 years, you did not care. And now, when I have problems, you care. And I feel that you are a bad leader or it's wrong, basically. So don't communicate only if people have or if they did something wrong. It's like in marriage. We should not communicate only if we are about to divorce, but it's better to start communicate before and regularly. We have some marital courses or marital for married couples. So I asked them to come and to join us. It's like 6 or 7 lessons, and they said we have no problems. We don't need it. And I said, if you will join us and you will have already problems, it's too late. These lessons are not for people that are coming through deep troubles. But it's the same with communication with our co-workers. We should not communicate when they are in troubles, but regularly. If possible, never ever solve problems via emails, SMS, but rather in person. If you want to kill your relationships, use your emails. That's the best way how to kill relationships. And in my church, not like denomination, in my church, there is a value. We will not communicate through emails. Of course, we will communicate, we should meet at 8 o'clock or, and I say people, don't write me emails. I will not read it. If it's sometimes it's not possible. There is no other way. But if it is possible, it's no problem to say, hey, David, we will meet in next week and we'll talk face to face. But, by emails, it's killing. And you know how social media works. It's brutal sometimes. And I also know that what people, because I'm publishing on social media, so I also read what people are writing me. It's sometimes something, I'm almost afraid to meet them. Finally, I met them, so I felt that they will kick me down or that they will be push me. And they were quite nice. Because face to face, we are not so tough like on email. So don't use email, don't use SMS for dealing with difficult issues. Sometimes there is no other way. But if it is, use face-to-face communication. If it is too difficult, if there are some big issues, then you can bring somebody else, some mediator, but still it's better than use emails. And the last one, the most important one. Build your identity on Christ. No, not on your accomplishments or skills. It sounds very easily, but it is absolutely, it's the most important. Build your identity on Christ, not on your accomplishments or skills. Don't compare yourself to other ministers or ministries. And learn to wish them their success. If they are better, that's great. If they have smarter children, bigger church, better preaching, more successful organizations, try to thank God. God is so good that He is better, bigger, I don't know, whatever He is. And this identity on Christ, it means that I'm loved unconditionally. I don't need to be successful. If I'm successful, I'm able to admit it, to be aware of that. Praise the Lord that He gave me certain abilities, certain gifts. I know about that. But I don't need to be proud. At the same time, if I'm not very good at something does not work, I don't need to underestimate myself. I know who am I. I do know that I'm good at some areas of my ministry. I also am aware that there are some areas I'm not good, and I'm not depressed from that. So this was basically 5 pitfalls about 5 pitfalls of Christian ministry, of Christian leadership, and I hope that the second part gave us some hope that we can do something with it or we can deal with it wisely. So